Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. When did it happen that society convinced us that only youth matters? Does the wisdom gained over a lifetime simply become irrelevant after a certain age? Have we allowed ourselves to buy into a mindset that there's an age where we should retire and pass the baton to a younger generation? God says the latter rain will be better than the former rain, and nowhere in the Bible does anyone ever retire. Our next guest has created practical devotions steeped in Scripture that will help you transition to a time of life that can be rich with purpose, significance, and hope as you serve God. You'll be encouraged and empowered to build a life that matters now and for eternity. You can discover for yourself that the best years, the most impactful years of your life, are still to come. Bruce Gordon is the former president of Focus on the Family Canada. He has served in senior leadership for many organizations. As a senior consultant and trainer for the Birkman Method, Bruce continues to coach, consult, and mentor pastors and leaders around the globe. He and his wife Denise are a resource to many through their consulting firm Mentor Matrix Services Incorporated. Bruce serves part-time on the pastoral team of Peace Portal Alliance Church in Vancouver, British Columbia, as a resource to the pastors and the 55-plus demographic. Joining us now to talk about his new book, As Long as I Have Breath, Serving God with Purpose in the Later Years, is Bruce Gordon. Bruce, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Thank you, Eric. It's great to be with you. Great to be with you.
Great to share this journey, as you and I are very, very close to the same age as to the real relevance and significance of our generation being able to sow into another generation and be a part of an exponential growth because of our experience, because of the wisdom, because of the roads that we've traveled. So as we talk about roads we've traveled, let's go back to your early developmental years on the road you traveled, your journey to faith and what the influences were in your life, and when the call came for you to go into ministry.
Well, Eric, it's I grew up in northern Ontario. Grew up on a farm. Growing season is probably a couple of weeks up there, and I was privileged to be raised in a Christian home. You know, my parents were followers of Jesus, and they instilled that in us. I have two younger brothers, and I always believed that God had something unique for us, but I just couldn't. You know, I couldn't put my finger on it. And my father, he was a farmer. We called him a steel plant farmer. He worked for Algoma Steel and then retired from there, but he didn't retire. He worked until he was 92, and then God took him home. And Mom was the same. And so the part for me is that I wanted to get off the farm as fast as I could. I'm not very technologically adept. So it's a kind of a miracle I'm still alive, to be quite honest. And so as I looked to what I wanted to do, I wanted to own my own business. I have an accounting designation of CPA. I've got an MBA. I've got an honorary doctorate along the way, and that was my mission. That's where I went, and God intervened in our lives. I married Denise here, and we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary coming up later this summer. And I took her on a wild ride, so to speak, and because I'm a risk taker. But God intervened in our lives and really called us into vocational full-time ministry in another, you know, perhaps another time of a story. But the part of it was that I resisted it for 5 years, and then ended up going to Toronto from Sault Ste. Marie and being the president, ending up as the president. Now it's called Tyndale College and Seminary. Back in those days it was Ontario Bible College and Seminary, and was there for 5 years, and then came out to Vancouver as president of Focus on the Family. So I've always believed, I don't know the best way to describe this is only from my heart, I've always believed that God has a purpose and meaning for us, and it wouldn't finish at 55 or 65 or 70 or whatever, that it would carry on. And that was instilled in me by my parents and a few close friends.
Where did we get this notion that there was, and I know that in certain denominations they have a mandatory retirement age for pastors. Corporate America, which I came out of, 35 years in corporate America, I took one retirement package from one company and moved to another, took an early out. But there was so much to give, there was so much to offer, there was so much that I had experienced that it was really wasted, and people had to go through and make the same mistakes I made because they didn't take advantage of the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience of any kind of corporate mentoring. And there is here in America, there is the Service Corps of Retired Executives called SCORE, where they try to put people who want to volunteer back into those kind of mentorship positions in business. But I see in ministry that we tend to put people out to pastor.
Yeah. It's intriguing. That's really why I spent time on this book and focus on the family. And Tyndale were around me, helping me through that on a bit of a team piece. We bought in, especially here. Up here in Canada, we have society talks about Freedom 55. There are some insurance companies that push that and I've often wondered about that, because 55 isn't very old, especially from where you and I are sitting, and that as we look back. And I've said, who says there's freedom at 55? Because I would have people alongside of me who would come to me as I was younger than they were, and they would say, I've just retired. It was my own decision, or I was forced into retirement. Financially, we're in great shape. That's not an issue here, but I don't have any purpose or meaning anymore. And then in the church, there's a perspective that the church says, okay, you need to hand off. You've done, you've served well and so on. So hand off, serve well, and continue to give, and be involved financially. And I'm hearing a resistance to that. Not that they won't continue to financially be involved, but they're saying, I've got more to offer. And I read about, in Scripture, in the text, about how God used men and women in these latter years, and so it really has impacted me to say, how can I come alongside in different ways, through writing, through speaking, through consulting, in those who we're all in transition, my goodness, and how can I help and be a resource to say, just a minute, there is a better way. And I really do believe it's a better way.
It's interesting that I was ordained at age 55.
Yeah.
That's when my official ministry life began.
Yeah.
When I was ordained at age 55.
Yeah.
I had worked 35 years in the corporate world and then left and went into full-time ministry. But I'll share an interesting story with you, and it will maybe illuminate this a little bit. My father was forced to retire at age 64 and had a heart attack at his retirement party.
Wow.
And spent the next 20 years suffering without purpose, because he worked for one company his entire life. It was the only thing he knew. And when that was taken away from him, it was as if his life was over. And everything was tied to that identity. And I think we advance that false identity by asking people, well, what do you do? And when you get to a certain age and you say, well, I'm retired. Well, that kind of puts you in this mode where you're no longer a valuable contributor to society. You've now unplugged. You're now reaping the benefits. You're in the harvest season. You're no longer able to plant. You're no longer able to plow. You're no longer able to do the things. You're in the harvest, and so you're reaping the harvest of that hard work. And well done, good and faithful servant. And you should enjoy whatever days you have remaining on the earth. But this crown of wisdom that you and I both wear with white hair, King Solomon says it is a crown of wisdom. And so to just let it sit there without sharing it, without investing it, and without giving it back, and mentoring and shepherding and discipling and bringing the next generation along, seems like there's no return on the investment that the Lord has made in our lives during the seasons of the productive years, if you will, or the fully engaged years. I can see people scaling back to 3 days a week, or not being I was 24/6 was my model. 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, I was available. I was Sabbath keeper. I'm still a Sabbath keeping. As a Jewish believer, I still keep the Sabbath.
Yes.
Still 24/6. But this idea of being done with me because I hit a certain age I think, is foolishness.
Yeah. A man who really was a turning point in my life was Dr. Roger Birkman. And I have my wife and I have a consulting practice that we're alongside of leadership. I was with a team yesterday of a church in transition and helping them through some stuff as they think what's next. And that's a bit of a challenge in these COVID days and what the new normal looks like. But I was with Focus on the Family, and then I left that position, and I was trying to think through what I was going to do. I had different approaches. People had mission, or they had take this opportunity, whatever. In August of 1997, the phone rang in our home here in Vancouver, and it was Roger Birkman from Houston. I'd never met this man before. I had gone through the profile, and Roger called me and said, "Bruce, we need to talk." Now I thought I was in trouble. I thought, "Oh my goodness, I filled out the form wrong." But he was 79 years old, and a deeply committed believer, Lutheran Methodist, who was in a Methodist church, but his father was a Lutheran pastor. And there's a story around how he founded Birkman International in 1950. And Roger said, "I need you to help me, because I need you to take this and help me take it into ministry." And that began the journey that I still carry on, because he passed away at 95. His wife Sue passed away at 93, and they were deeply involved in our lives, both Denise and I. And Eric, I was sitting on an airplane because I took him. We traveled extensively. We were heading into Singapore. I was doing a session over there, and Roger's sitting in the seat beside me, and we're talking. And he said, "Bruce," he said, "listen to me." He said, "It's not about retirement. You've got to make a commitment and a promise to me that you will carry on as long as you can." And at that point, he was 85 years old. And I said, "Roger, I will use you as an example. I'm following Jesus, obviously, but I'm going to use you as an example, because I know you're going to hold me accountable." You're going to ask me a question here at some point in the future, and so that really impressed upon me. And he was, and here's what he said. He said, "Get people around you that are younger, and listen to them, and be there for them, but they'll be there for you as well." And I said, "Well," I said, "at 85, that's not too hard for you to do." But I've never forgotten that. And that influenced me. Really, Roger's DNA is in this book, because that was at the heart of this. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to do this, Lord. However this looks like, you do it, and I'll follow you." And I'm still doing it. And another part of this is that I was with a pastor. He's 78. 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Bruce, I want to talk to you. I want to tell you what I'm doing." I said, "Okay," because he'd heard about it, and I've known him kind of. He said, I said, I am now going to be working on my thesis for my doctoral ministry. And I'm almost there. And he shared with me what he was thinking of. And he said, he said, I just wanted to tell you. He said, I'm working, I'm going upstream here, and I'm going to keep doing it. So not unlike what you becoming ordained at 55.
As you talk to people, where did this mindset get planted, and how many buy into it? Because I see, especially in the marriage area, I see that couples are getting married now right out of college. This is the new model.
Yep.
It's kind of like it's an old model, but it's a new model. It was
Yep.
the model of the 60s, and
Yep.
now it's back the model again. They meet in college, or they meet in high school, they remain sweethearts, and they get married after they graduate, and they build their lives together. But there's a need for them to connect with more than just mother-in-law, father-in-law, mom and dad. They need people who have that 40-year experience of marriage and what they can expect, what they can anticipate, some of the things that every couple goes through, that they have this ability to impart. But I don't see churches with an active mentorship program. I find that deeply lacking in connecting, especially young marrieds with older couples, to be able to tell stories and to have somebody outside the family circle, someone who's not intimately involved but spiritually connected to them, to be able to sow into their lives and be a voice of reason in troubled times.
Yeah.
Why? Why have we allowed this to continue, to perpetuate, to buy into something that society has said there's this age called senior citizen, and it's time to move on and hand the baton off to the next generation and let them lead? And I certainly agree with that, but I don't agree with letting go of the baton.
Exactly.
I agree with handing them the baton and together walking with them through it.
It is the question. I think it's somewhat like that illustration of frog in the kettle, where the frog is in and you slowly heat the water up and they don't realize what's happening. I think we've been so influenced in a materialistic way in our society of what we're due, and we're really it's been ingrained in us that we're to work hard, we're to be there, we're to be involved in our and we'll change careers. Though my father, like your dad, had the same career for all of his life, and then that freedom piece. Then you can travel. Then you'll have the resources. Then you'll, and so on, and that's all fine and good. But people arrive at this point, and they say, "Okay, I'm here. I've climbed this ladder, but I'm not sure where it's leaning against." And there's more. And Eric, this is such a powerful illustration for me, because I've got a friend who retired, and it was a forced retirement, but he financially he was, he had all kinds of resources, and what he did is that for 1 year he drove downtown Vancouver, and he parked in the parking lot, or where he didn't have to pay, and he looked up at the office building and looked at the window where his office had been, with a light on. He could see some other people in it, and he just sobbed. Then he'd turn around, he'd come home. Next day, down he'd go again. And this went on for the better part of a year until finally he said, "What am I doing?" It just eaten his heart out, and we connected, and so he said, I've got to release this," and it was part of releasing, and so um, it's ingrained in us, and we need to be a voice. And I thank you for your program and featuring this, just to say, well, just a minute here. If we can be a voice to say, there is another way here. There's a better way. And it's not about running faster, because we can't run faster, but it is about capacity and sustainability. And here are the issues that we all face, but how can you have purpose and meaning? And the other part of it is the mentorship program, because churches, they all want it. Like we all talk about it. I got an email sitting here, somebody saying, how do I put a mentorship program in place? And they're not exactly sure how to do it. And one of the things that we're doing here at Peace Portal, here, I've always used organizations as my lab. It's a lab. We're trying to figure it out. We don't have it all together, and we're working on a mentorship program here that will work to connect those who are 55 plus older with those who are younger. And the other part of it that we've been led to believe is from us who are older, that the younger generation don't want us. They don't want what we have. That is so wrong. At least what I'm hearing, because I'm involved here at this church, and when we all get together, we're probably 1,500, whatever, if they all come back once we get back here. But the part of it is that I'm involved with the youth and young adults leaders here, and they're saying, Bruce, we do want it. So there's different pieces, but I think the point is that how do we do it? And if we can be a resource to help, we're going to do it. I'm going to do whatever I can in this here, and we'll try some things, and we'll have successes, have some failures, and we'll tweak it and keep going.
King Solomon wrote that for everything there's a season.
Yeah.
And we have to embrace the seasons, because there's nothing we can do to stop the seasons from changing. But what we do in those seasons, we do have control over as the seasons change.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no opportunity for us to be able to affect change, to be significant, to find our worth in the kingdom in the later years, and there's not opportunity, then we're taking a resource and we're letting it wither on the vine. And it's unfortunate that we have, one, allowed ourselves to be identified by our work. That common question, what do you do, defines who you are. And as a child of Messiah, a child of God, that's who I am. That's what I do. I work for the living God. I am an ambassador of Messiah. I am a minister of reconciliation. I am a voice of the gospel, preaching the good news to the four corners of the earth. And that doesn't have an age limit. That doesn't have a license that expires. But this was an opportunity we had to create in our own ministry for ourselves, because there wasn't an opportunity out there for us in the later years to be able to carry the message, to continue and to touch more lives in a profound way. And so we ventured out into a new ministry, a broadcast ministry that we birthed 5 years ago, that's now seen in 110 countries around the world by millions of viewers, and connecting with tens of thousands of people all throughout the world that are following our teaching programs and our interviews and getting resources like yours and saying, well, we don't have this available in our country, but we've got older people and we want to find a way to engage them, and we want to help them connect and stay connected. They are the backbone. Those are the ones, in most cases, that built the church when the church was first started. Many of them are the founding families. And to say that you should now move out of a role and just continue to financially support seems like such a waste of the spiritual investment that's been deposited in each one of them to have gone through life and death, the ability to grief counsel, the ability to marital counsel, the ability to navigate parenting and grandparenting. It's such a wealth and such a vast resource that's not found in any book anywhere, but it's found in community. And it's found in honoring the generation that lived through and have stories to tell that aren't prolific authors, and they're not eloquent speakers, but they can have a meal and they can listen to a dialogue and they can invest in the lives of somebody. It's a kind of a big brothers, big sisters kind of program, but in a much different perspective, that it connects the body of Messiah and keeps people from drifting. And I think that we drift because we're not connected.
Yeah.
And so you're just free floating. And if you are at least tethered, at a certain age you don't have to be anchored, but tethered, so that you can soar, but still within the radius of this community that you can valuably serve. Yeah. So how do we get people to change the mindset?
Well, I can only say what we're doing here. And so this is what I'm doing. Obviously, I write I've done the book, and I put out a bi-weekly devotional theme piece on as a follow-up, and in terms of purpose and meaning and so on. Eric, one of the things that we've done here at the church is that one of the tragedies in church is, I believe, is that we have tended to segment our church into demographics. We've got youth, we've got young adults, we've got, the 40s, 50s or so on, and then we got the seniors, and we go on and I understand the reason for doing that because of meeting their needs, but we've said we're going to work against that. And so here's what we've done. The first Sunday of every month, Denise and I facilitate a time with our boomers, and of course there's some that are younger coming in, and boomers are those born 1945 to 1965. We have another group that's an older group as well, but we're doing a couple things. We are saying, we're interviewing people to tell their story. So we just say, tell your story. What has God done? What's life done for you? And what have you learned? And they just resonate to that. And then we also have done where we brought in a panel of young adults, four that some of us would call them kids, but they're in their 20s. And we've said, talk to us about where you're at. What does church mean to you? What are some of the challenges that you're facing? How can we connect with you? What do you need from us? Tell us. I had to shut that thing down. And they're still talking about it. And one of the things that we're going to do, because we've continued it on with Zoom, and hopefully we'll be able to meet soon up here on that. But I'm going to bring that same group back, and we're going to facilitate a time with them where they're going to say, we'll talk about how's it been through the COVID period. What's been the upside? What's been the downside? And what are your hopes? How has it changed you as we're now moving forward and coming out of this? And how would you define it? And when I mentioned that to a couple of them, he said, Bruce, we're all over this. Like, when are you going to do this? And so we're going to do that in May, the first Sunday of May. And by the way, if anybody wants to Zoom, and we're going to Zoom it, they can join us on that. But so we're trying to connect the different demographics in a more intentional, purposeful way, to listen to each other. And then out of that session, I know out of that time that we had here previous, that a number of our people are engaged in mentorship kinds of involvement with some of those that were part of that, and some that they talked to their friends about.
It becomes a mindset of one of listening, being willing to ask the question, what does this generation or these generations need? What are their hopes and aspirations, and how can you help? But it begins, as you so artfully put it in this devotional, is that you have to believe that you are worthy, valuable, and have something to contribute first to change your mindset to become a part of a generation that returns to contribution as opposed to pasteurization.
Eric, on that point, when I was writing this, I was really writing it for myself. And so as I was going through the themes, and I have been working with Tyndale and focus on the themes, I was saying, these are the kind of things that I need to understand. And so I also wanted to make it short enough that you could, we call them airplane books, like you can read it pretty quickly, and then think about it over the week. That's why it's 52. And so I wanted to understand, like, what does it mean to age in a meaningful way? Because we are aging, and that, like, what are the traps that we need to avoid? What's a mentor look like? And here's one that I've really struggled with, because I've been a leader in organizations for the most part, for all my life, for the best part. I know I haven't been a very good follower at times. And so what's it mean to be a follower? Because at this stage, it's how we hand off, but as you and I talked about previously, you hang on to the baton, not to control, but to be a follower. So what's it mean to be a good follower? And life's transitional stages, and so I've built all of those pieces into the book to say, here are the issues, at least from my perspective, that we're facing, and here's some thoughts on what to do about it.
The Lord just showed me this picture just very clearly, that the words "I've got your back" is exactly what this is. That we are entering the season of a generation of "we've got your back." We are the people that are behind you to encourage you, to lift you up, to be the Aarons and the Hurs, for you to be the Moseses, for you to take the frontline position. But we're there because we've got your back. And that is such a valuable and important role, that you can stumble, but we're not going to let you fall. We've got your back. We're talking with Bruce Gordon, author of the new devotional, As Long as I Have Breath, Serving God with Purpose in the Later Years. As we age, many of us have been put out to pasture, or been led to believe, falsely believe, that our contribution should now be relegated to being a financial supporter, as opposed to an active advisor, or to really get behind the dreams of this next generation. And that's actually a pattern of God, that while God gave Joseph a dream, Joseph didn't put his shoulder to the plow of his own dreams. He actually served the dreams of others. When Daniel was given dreams, he did not put his shoulder to the plow of fulfilling his own dreams. He served the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar before his dreams came to pass. Is this a season of us getting behind the dreams of others and putting our shoulder to the plow of helping them obtain the dreams they have for their lives? And what a good and valuable contribution we can make as seniors into the lives of the next generation, knowing that the wisdom, knowledge, and experience that we've had can help pave the way by having the backs of this next generation. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of these devotionals and some of the challenges of changing the mindset of believing that you can make a contribution in the later years. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, host of Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Revealing Prophecy, seen every week on the Igniting Nation Broadcasting Network. Our daily on-demand programming is available on our Apple and Android apps, and on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. We broadcast live Monday through Friday through our apps, on our website, ignitingnation.com, and on Facebook Live. You can listen daily on our audio platforms on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeart. Our lineup of best-selling authors bring you the most in-depth biblical insights into the most pressing issues of our time, including prophecy, Israel, spiritual warfare, and a wide variety of contemporary Christian issues impacting the body of Messiah around the globe. If you missed the live show, you can always catch up on the Igniting Nation YouTube channel. Follow us on social media and join us as we endeavor to heal the nations with the Word of God.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to study right by my side through the Biblical Truth Library. Imagine having access to over 1,000 hours of audio and video teachings available to you through our website on a subscription basis or via our Apple and Android apps on an a la carte basis. Whichever method you choose, we promise to deliver new insights into the living Word of God as seen through the eyes of a Jewish believer. If you hunger and thirst like millions around the world for a deeper walk with God and the revelation of new understanding of the Scriptures, visit ignitingnation.com and click on the Biblical Truth Library or on any device with our free app. Don't let another day go by without receiving your heart's desire for a new depth of understanding into all of God's Word. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zeb Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Drs. Michelle and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitingnation.com or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitingnation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, you will never read your Bible the same way again. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Bruce Gordon, author of the 52-week devotional, As Long as I Have Breath, Serving God with Purpose in the Later Years. Bruce, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bruce, you have laid out 52 weeks of devotion, thought-provoking, thought-changing, mind-changing, paradigm shifts in how I view myself and my worthiness to serve. and you navigate us through meaningful aging and the value of reflection, and then you come to 5 traps to avoid. What are those traps that we need to be aware of?
Well, these are traps that that I took as I was been reading and thinking about it for my own life. There are traps that are mentioned in Henry and Richard Blackaby's book on spiritual leadership, and I tweaked them a little bit, but they certainly come from their thoughts. But there are some traps that we need to watch out for, and just briefly, they are the trap of cynicism. You know, being a cynic, and we start to be critical of this isn't the way we used to do it. There's a trap of mental laziness. We just need to we have to watch out for that, because we need to continue to strive for being creative and inspiring others to think outside the box. This is one that I mentioned, and I've spoken on it: the trap of becoming oversensitive. And if you can't, and so you should. I have people who are saying, they're not doing it the way we used to do it. They're not I'm not being asked, and they start to get oversensitive, and so you just got to watch that you don't fall into that and develop a bitter spirit. The trap of spiritual lethargy, obviously, just we got all this time, but we start to drift, and that can happen so quickly. And then the trap of life-work balance. And that's kind of interesting at our stage of life, because it is the whole area of how to, if your spouse, if you're still married, obviously, how do you balance the life together as a couple, but still individually, and I also talk about volunteering. So it's not going all into volunteer, and now there's nothing left for your home life. But so we need to watch out for that trap at our age in terms of the balance. How do we bring the proper balance?
You touched on a subject in your 10th devotional, your 10th week on Kavanah, which is such an important part of the Jewish experience. Something that I've known all my life, in inclining my heart to the Lord. You introduce it, and you introduce it in the Jewish context, which I appreciate a great deal, because the Bible is a Jewish book written by Jewish authors about a Jewish Messiah, and we forget that deep Jewish connection, that the first believers were all Jewish, that there was no New Testament at the time of Jesus. And so when you put it in that perspective, you need to reconnect back to things like the Sabbath and things like Kavanah, which are so significant. Introduce our audience to that concept.
I've been in Israel twice. I want to go back. The Bible comes alive. It is in living color. And one time I was on a tour, the other one I was a co-host of a tour in that, and I remember a Jewish guy, and I put this into my book. I remember a Jewish guy talking to Denise and I, and saying that prayer without kavanah is like a body without a soul, because kavanah is the attentiveness to God. It's the act of appreciation to being able to stand in the presence of God. And Rabbi, you know that. I mean, I went into a synagogue, and I just, and I wore, the yarmulke, and I said, there was just you're in the presence of God, and so for me, I use, it actually helped me in how I changed my prayers. Because now, before, and Daniel Henderson is an author and has written on this as well, and in it, I've tended to go and I didn't practice kavanah. I went and said, Lord, I need this. Help me with this. Empower me to do this, and so on. And I believe it's the beginning. Kavanah is all about first seeking the face of God, and then his hand gets open to us, and we receive his blessings. And that was so impressed on me when I was there, and still is. Seeking the face of God. It really is covenant to me.
It's inclining your heart in true worship, which is the stripping away of all the trappings of the world and leaving the world behind. And unfortunately, the way we've set up church today is you don't have enough time, and you don't have a part of the worship service to remove yourself from the world and examine your heart. And so, as unlegalistic as I am, I still am honoring of the Sabbath, because it gives me time alone with the Lord, dedicated to Him. It is my time with Him set aside, that if I happen to shortchange Him on a particular day because of a busy schedule, we know we have an appointment together. And my heart is inclined, and that is the time of deep self-examination, in peeling away all the veneer and all the things that have formed a shell during the week. And because it's a weekly experience, the veneer doesn't get too thick. And it's why you do it every week. And if you look at the Ten Commandments, if you don't have that fourth commandment is securing your vertical relationship with God, then you don't have the cross piece to give you the horizontal relationship with man. So God inserts it right there, and if you look at the cross, the fourth commandment is the cross piece on the cross. And 1, 2, and 3 are above, and 5 through 10 are below. And right there is how you maintain your relationship with God and separate yourself from man long enough to repair, to then prepare for re-entry when the Sabbath is over, to go back to dealing with your fellow man. And if we do this at any age, then our relationship grows deeper, and you begin to think less of the natural, which age is a natural number. It's not a supernatural number, it's a natural number. You begin less to think about the natural and more about the supernatural. You're not advocating that people don't retire. You're not advocating that people work until they die. You're advocating a new mindset that says that you are of value, and you can make a contribution, and to the extent that you want to contribute, you are in control of that if you have the right mindset.
Right. I totally am. I'm with you 100% on this, because I'm saying, no, it's not, as I said earlier, it's not about running faster. It is about purpose and meaning. And one of the ways that I've suggested, and I've done it for myself, but one of the ways I suggest for people perhaps to think about is that be purposeful in thinking in terms of, perhaps what you want this next year to look like. I one of my favorite questions that I ask in leadership is, what does success look like 12 months from now? Well, I think we need to probably be doing it 2 months from now, given where we're at in COVID. So I talk about being purposeful and writing it down. You do need to write it down. And then Eric, I also use the term an advisory group. And I say to my colleagues as they're thinking, where do I start? I said, well, why don't you bring a few people around you that would be, you can call them whatever you want. I call it a little advisory board here, and there should be some on there who are younger, and you might meet with them every month or whatever. Some would call it an accountability, but start thinking in terms of being deliberate in terms of meeting, and you're investing in them, but they're investing in you, and you can use them as a way to process and to be thinking about it. And for those who are doing it, they're coming back and saying, oh my goodness, this has been so significant in my life. at this stage. And I said, it's not a life sentence. Do it for 6 months at a time, but make sure you get someone that's younger. So I am totally not saying I don't like that word retire. Don't slow down, but it's all about knowing your capacity and your sustainability. Those are the two key words.
I think the core message, if I were to summarize it for our audience, is that most people have been looking to build an earthly legacy. Something important to many people is, what is their legacy? But even more important is your kingdom legacy, not your earthly legacy.
Right.
And a kingdom legacy has no time or space. You can make hospital visits. You can sit with kids while parents go visit their sick mother or father in the hospital, and you can be the sitter. There are things to do that are not so spiritual, that are not so Bible focused, but they are service oriented, they are available, and they may not have active grandparents around to be involved with them or their children's lives. And they may be distanced from them, living far away. And you can fill that gap for them by being present in their lives. And you derive as much of a blessing from it as they derive the blessing that you're trying to bestow upon them. And I think that extends life when you feel that you are a blessing, that you are still capable of making a contribution to another person's life, but still living out your retirement years, your later years, in the pace that you want to, and still be of value and of service to the kingdom.
A good example of that, I just recently had to facilitate a memorial service for a woman. She was in her mid-80s, and we did it on Zoom, and it was interesting coming across the country and this couple deliberately focused on connecting with younger people. That's what they did. The husband would go to the Awana program that we have, and he'd be there for cubbies in that. And in the memorial service, we had a number of leaders, young leaders in their 30s, who wanted to be there and wanted to speak and say, thank you. You don't know what you did for me. Where they were, and they used that word, Eric, you were such a blessing to me, and we're going to miss you big time. Just spoke to me. There was lots of tears.
A powerful message for a generation that needs an infusion of vision, encouragement, and purpose in the later years. Bruce Gordon, author of As Long as I Have Breath, Serving God with Purpose in the Later Years, a 52-week devotional to help you take on a new mind, the mind of Messiah, as to how you can reframe what the later years look like and be an active participant with the Holy One of Israel in making a difference in other people's lives. A timely message, a timely season, as we look at a generation coming up that needs mentors, needs guides, and wants them. Bruce Gordon, thank you. Thank you for this great contribution to a generation that thinks that they have been forgotten or maybe even left behind, to give them new life, new hope, new purpose, and making a kingdom legacy real. Thank you.
Well, I'm honored to be with you. We're alongside of each other, even though we're in different parts, different countries, different parts of North America. But Eric, thank you. Thank you for having me with you. And also, I want to bless and thank you for what you're doing and for your message and your Jewish roots. Oh, I love your Jewish roots. I love them. And so thank you.
Thank you. God bless you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.